Hey guys, now welcome to this space where psychology and faith collides. And today we're going to be on psychology, right? Um Interesting topic. Have you addressed your past wounds? Have you addressed your past trauma? If you're here, if you're watching this, it's probably because you've gone through something in the past that maybe you're trying to overcome. Maybe you've gone through a traumatic experience that you've never shared with someone. And so let's have a chat. Let's have a chat about you through my story, right? I'm currently pursuing my doctorate in psychology, my PhD, if you may, in psychology. And I never understood the impact of that being a tool that I should be using to get myself better. Number one, most of y'all know I'm very spiritual. I have a very close relationship with God, and I overcame my struggles by prayer. I overcame my struggles through deliverance, and I credit my deliverance to God and God alone. I've never seen a therapist. I've never felt the need to see a therapist. However, even though you've gone through deliverance, you still have to put in place some tools to help you maintain that deliverance. But what deliverance does is it exposes stuff, right? It removes a whole bunch of toxic things, that it opens your eyes to realize, wow, I need to work on my character. Wow, I need to work on my behavior. Maybe I have habits and mannerisms that have been detrimental to my success and to me as an individual. So that's kind of like where psychology comes in, where it gives you tools that you can use to build you into a better person, to help you have a healthy and nurturing relationship with yourself. Let's stop talking about other people. Let's start talking about you, because a lot of times many of us are walking around bleeding. We don't even know why, right? We have a lot of habits that we're trying to break, or maybe some of us have not even tried to break those habits. We've accepted it as part of ourselves. And I'm going to tell you guys a really, really short, quick story before I dive into what I'm about to say. And this is going to be a short video. We're trying to work on you, but we're going to use parts of me and then jump into psychology says. But one of the things that I found myself doing, the habits that I had, is I used to jump from project to project. So I'll have this idea. Today we're talking about mental health, and tomorrow I'm like, oh my gosh, what if I get into agriculture and start growing coffee? And then the next day I want to have a fish farm because it's an amazing opportunity in this country because they don't have tilapia. And then the next day I want to get into financial business. I want to have a financial app that does this. And then the next day, so I had all of these ideas, and the bad thing about having all of those ideas was I couldn't stick to one to see it all the way through, because I felt like I had to do everything, right? Because if I don't do this now, I'm going to lose the opportunity. If I don't do this now, I'm going to lose the opportunity. So I didn't really think about why I was like that, but I knew I was like that. It was only until last year that I was like, wait a minute. And even I remember going to this certain prophet, and he told me, like, I see you have a lot of books where you've written a lot of ideas, but none of these ideas have manifested into anything. It's just books with stuff. And I started to ask myself, why is it that you cannot see these things through till the end? And it's not like I quit, but I get to a point where I shelve it and I say, I'm going to come back to you later. That's what I used to do. So as I kept asking these questions, I just decided, let me pray about it, right? And then as I was going along that journey is when I found myself jumping into my doctorate in psychology. Literally my second week of psychology. First of all, from the first week, I learned so much. You know, I'm in love with all things mental health. So that's why for me, it was just like, I love this place right now. So I found myself learning a lot. And I remember we were talking about topics that tie into why we act the way we act, why we think the way we think. And at one point, my professor started to use different illustrations that were so eye-opening. And every time I come into these pockets where, you know, someone is teaching about something that captivates me, I always go back and I research more, right? So I can learn more about that area. I found myself reflecting on my life, and I took this habit of not seeing things all the way through, and I put it in front of me, and I started to use the tools that the professor was giving me to understand myself better. So I started asking myself, why are you like this? Why do you do that, Sheila? Why are you like this? And what is insane is A memory, y'all. A memory for when I was about 6 or 7 years old. This is a memory that has never popped up in my life. I'm telling you. I've never sat with myself and say, oh my gosh, when I was 6 years old, I went through this. It was so traumatic. It's never happened. So a memory from when I was like 6, 7 popped up. And I found myself meditating about that. Because remember, when you're doing introspectional self-awareness, it's always best when someone else is guiding you, because a lot of times we've been conditioned by those habits to be who we are. So you can't really know yourself as well as you think you do. A lot of people can see my mannerisms and my habits in a different light because they're observing me. I'm acting out those habits. So I can't really see clearly how they're manifesting unless you sit down with yourself and you go through this process, which I'm happy to share with you guys. If you book a session, I'll teach you those key steps that you need to take to understand, first of all, what are these habits that I have? Are they damaging to me? How are they manifesting? And how can we get rid of it? How can we replace these bad habits, these negative habits, these sabotaging habits with good habits? So, yeah, I found myself literally with this 7-year-old memory, this memory from when I was 7 years old. And I sat there going, what is going on? When I was a child, when I was little, I was always like second last or third last. I was always one of the last people in class. I remember my teacher, and by the way, the only reason I'm talking about this is because it popped up when I started studying, and now it became a thing, and I didn't realize that what happened to me then was making an impact of who I am today. You know, when the teacher used to give us our exams back, and I don't know why, okay, well, I guess they used to put it like face down so nobody sees your marks. And the bad thing that the teachers used to do, and please, if you're a teacher, don't do this, they used to call you from the last person. I remember even one time in one of my classes, I changed some of the answers because I'm like, there is no way that I got almost everything wrong in this test. But I did. So I would go to the teacher and be like, oh, I wrote this answer and you marked me wrong. And she would change it so that at least I have 2 points out of 50 instead of 1 point out of 50. Like it was not good. And I would go home. I remember going into my living room after school and just sitting down with my paperwork. Oh, Sheila. And studying for hours. Imagine little old 7-year-old Sheila trying to grasp these topics. And what was so insane is that to me, when I read these topics, I understood them. But when the exam came, I don't know what happened. I mean, I just think there was something spiritual there as well, to be quite honest with you. But I don't know what was happening with me. And that impacted me at that point. Fast forward, my parents moved me to a private school, and I went from being the last one in the class or the second last one in the class to being either number 1, 2, or 3. I never moved from that. It was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And what was so crazy was, oh wow, so Sheila, you were never dumb, right? And there's this thing called composition, which is like you write short stories in English, and we had them called inshas, which is in Swahili. And let me tell you, no one could defeat me in composition or insha. Like right now, my Swahili, don't even, please, let's just talk in English because y'all gonna be laughing at me. But I used to get like 40 out of 40 in inshas right away. When it comes to composition, right away. I knew I had an imaginative mind and I could explore with my thoughts, and I could put that on paper and write creative stories. And also for my insha, the same thing. I just started acing it, you know? And so obviously, and that's why I always encourage people, before you start thinking that your child is stupid, perhaps the school maybe doesn't have well-equipped teachers, because the quality of teachers in school A compared to school B was different. And what happened is the teachers from my previous school, they were just not that efficient. And that's why when I went to this other school, it was a school that a lot of kids from influential people came there, like high people in government. I'm talking about the toppest of the top people. So the teachers there were super high quality. We paid a lot of money for that school. So I was never dumb. It was the teachers that did not really know what they were doing 100%. And I just feel like God even just maybe he had mercy on me. Is like, my child, have wisdom. But what I'm trying to say is this, guys. That memory from when I was 7 years old, failing exams and not acing it and not performing as I wanted to, haunted me without me knowing. And what you have to understand about trauma or any negative memory or experience or bullying when you are a child, or just these things that you don't take care of and fix, they stay in your body and they manifest physically, right? Number one. Number two is trauma can remain in you until you confront it, and it forms how you think about your life, the different patterns that you have and behaviors. You see those signs of that trauma as an adult, right? You have people who have self-sabotaging behaviors, self-limiting beliefs, attachment issues, and so on. And I remember just being a very highly emotional kid, like even adults, right? I was always getting upset at things that people say to me or did to me. And I just didn't understand why people acted the way they were acting towards me. A lot of times I exaggerated things. I remember going to my messages from when I was like 15 and just seeing myself responding in like a type of rage because I was so angry. And it's like, who are you angry at? It's like I had this war within myself. And I wanted to ask you, how many of you are walking around bleeding? And you're not just bleeding on yourself, you're bleeding on everybody else, on your relationships, with your parents, with your spouse, with your significant other, with your siblings, with your mentors. You're just bleeding all over the place. And when they're trying to point out that you're bleeding, you're thinking that they're the cause of the bleeding. However, that wound has been there ever since you were a child. And what you guys need to understand is something that can seem as a prick to an adult is a stab wound to a child. And that stab wound was never patched up. In fact, you ignored it. You try to put this temporary band-aid called, I'm gonna ignore you. And that doesn't do anything. It makes things worse because you've bottled up things to a point where at one time it just explodes and things just seem like they're out of control. You cannot put a band-aid on a leaking faucet. You fix the faucet first, and then you start to put ointment to heal that wound. And so here I am, fast forward to how we started this story. I'm taking my psychology class and I'm sitting there, and these connections were being made because I made myself the subject as my professor was teaching. Because you know what I did? I went and I researched. I have so many ideas. What do I do? And YouTube told me that I am a multi-creative, talented person. And I was like, I like this label. I'm multi-created and talented. But psychology told me you have a memory from when you were 7 years old that has haunted you. I even wrote it here. I put over here, I said, I do a lot of things because I don't want to fail. So if I get the slightest hint of difficulty or a wall, I back out. I don't see it to the finish line because of the fear of failure. It's almost like I felt so intimidated by these tasks. I felt so intimidated by the project. So I said, you know what? I'm not ready to handle you. I'm going to put you here. Let me go and do fish farming. That's easy. It's just get a bunch of fish, put them in water. And then when I get to a point where I'm like, okay, getting funding for this is going to take a long time. I'm not ready to face that battle. Let me just go over here to mental health. Okay, okay, mental health is a huge thing in Africa. People are not really, there's stigma. People don't accept therapy. Let me go over here to media. Let me go over here to this. Let me go over here to that. So I was all over the place with 20 million ideas. Everybody knew that about me. And we just labeled it as you're a multi-creative, talented person. And the truth of the matter was, right, because I've dealt with it now, is that I had this fear of failure that stemmed from when I was 7 years old. This was a repressed memory. This was something that I chose to forget. And I didn't even know that it was haunting me. And the reason why I know it was haunting me was because I was not thinking about it. It just popped up out of its own. Why? Because I kept asking the right questions that unlocked that door. It's almost like it was a memory that was trying to hide and operate in secret, right? It was a memory that was hiding itself, and then the door was chained up with locks and chains and all of these things. And so I'm walking around trying to figure out, why do you act this way, Sheilla? Why do you do things this way, Sheilla? Yet the memory is there, because these memories don't just go away. You have to uproot them. You have to deal with them. They're occupying mental real estate in your mind. So simply choosing to ignore it doesn't mean that it's not going to affect you, right? It's going to manifest. It's going to show signs of it. somehow in your life, some of you guys are going to be acting out of rage and anger. You don't even understand yourself. Like, you're just always getting upset with people. You can't communicate properly. You're always being led by your emotions. If you're angry and your emotions are saying, yell at this person, slap them, that's how you act. Like, right? Your emotion regulation is not there. And normally, when you have trauma, especially as a child, but just in general, when you have trauma, at that point of trauma, you immediately go into this fight or flight response, where that is the only option for you, fight or flight. And so what happens is you end up sabotaging a lot of things. So I found myself crying, and I literally took my should I share this with you? I'll share it with you on the next video. But hold on, my mom is calling me. Hi, mommy, sorry, I was calling you when you're resting. Yeah, bye. Okay, sorry, I had to take a little breaky break. That was my mom. On the next video, I'm gonna read to you the outcome of that, what I wrote, because what preceded was like about an hour of me being in shock and sitting on my couch and crying and just feeling a release, right? I felt like this weight was lifted off of my shoulder, because what happens is when you have an awareness of why you act the way you act, then you start to make better choices. This is the whole thing, because a lot of times people think that there's this magic formula. Psychology is all about you understanding yourself better, you understanding your patterns, your behaviors, your movements, the way you speak, the way you perceive things better, right? It helps you deal with the issues now so that they don't become a problem in the future. And so this epiphany, this moment of epiphany for me, was so key to allowing me to move forward, because from that point onwards, and this is what I want to reiterate on. There is nothing wrong with you talking to your neighbor. There's nothing wrong with you talking to your friend, your parents. We always say talk to someone. Please don't feel like there's nobody to talk to. Even if it's a stranger, please talk to someone. But ever since I've been studying, doing my doctorate in psychology, I have learned there's a difference between talking to these individuals who, yes, talk to, and a professional, an actual professional who understands the topic, who understands what you're going through, who could be able to pick out, okay, what you're doing right there is called this, is called that, and this is how we're gonna now start to deal with it, right? And I always used to think just me praying was enough. Prayer is a foundation. It shows you other things, right? When you pray, God will now begin to reveal things about you. And then now we have tools in the world to be able to help us figure ourselves out and sort ourselves out, like psychology, neuroscience, where you understand the mind-brain connection, and just other equipments and tools out there. So don't be offended at getting therapy or seeing a counselor or psychologist or psychotherapist or whoever to sort out your issues. Because had I not gone through this process, I would never have known that my patterns and behaviors were rooted in this memory from when I was 7 years old. I would have continued to think that I am just a smart, intelligent person who's a multi-creative, and I'm gifted and I have so many skills, so much that I don't even know what to decide on. False. I had a memory that was giving me a spirit of fear and making me feel like if you go forward with this, you might fail. So maybe just back up, right? Fight or flee. And so I dealt with it. And now when that memory comes up, you know what happens? I know how to deal with it. I say, you're from a wrong foundation. I'm not listening to you. I'm moving forward. I'm more than able and capable to do this. I am not that 7-year-old girl. In fact, I was never dumb. The teachers were just not equipped to teach me. Because when I was transferred to the new school, guess what? I was top of the school. I got amazing good grades. I got into good schools. In fact, after that, I was accepted into Kenya High. The only reason I didn't finish out at Kenya High was because we moved to the US. So clearly your girl was very intelligent, right? So don't allow your past issues, your trauma from the past to determine who you are today. You might have been a victim when you were a child, but you don't have to remain a victim anymore. So I hope that this has been an eye-opening session for you. And I hope that you can start to reflect on your habits, on your patterns, and just have you dealt with your past wounds? You need to start dealing with them today. because I don't want you guys to get into a relationship and ruin it and think it's him who's the problem or her who's the problem when it's just you. Let's address us first, right? The self, before we start looking at how people are talking to us and how people are perceiving us and how people are treating us. How are you treating you? How are you treating yourself? Do you even love yourself, right? Do you respect yourself? Because when you allow other people to treat you like trash, to treat you like you're a nobody, then I beg to ask the question, do you love yourself? Do you self-love? Is that even a concept in your mind? Do you respect yourself? Respecting yourself is valuing yourself, honoring who you are from the core. So let's start looking at that, and I will see you on the next video where I will give you this amazing, wonderful essay that I wrote about the epiphany that I got when I went through my little eye-opening session where I broke down to come up. Yes. And I wish you the most amazing success on your healing journey. So follow along for more videos like this. This is the first of the psychology series, and I'm so excited about more videos like this. If you are looking for therapy, the way to contact me is in the description box below. I've gone through 20 years of dealing with depression and suicidal issues, ideation and attempts and all of that, right? 20 years is a long time. So you can imagine the work that I had to do within myself. And I always say it's important for you to have someone help you who's gone through what you're going through. That's the most effective. You know, I can't really tell a meth addict how to break free of those chains in an effective way, like a person who's walked that walk and has overcome and has actually gone to school to find out the tools that could reinforce his teachings better can be able to help you, right? So if you've gone through depression and suicidal issues, childhood trauma, and you're looking for healing and self-growth, contact me and I will be happy to help you out. I'll see you on my next video. Have a good one.